Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Somnolent story. Tonight, we leave behind the noise of the present and step softly into the gentle world of the past. Not into the echoing temples of pharaohs or the towering pyramids that scrape the horizon, but into something quieter, humbler, more human. An ordinary village beside the Nile. Here, life moves to a rhythm as steady as the river itself. The dawn begins, not with trumpets or ceremony, but with the hushed stirrings of daily tasks. A baker kneads his dough by the glow of a low fire. Farmers rise to meet the sun, their footsteps pressing the damp earth of the fields. A scribe, sheltered by a mud brick wall, dips his reed into ink and notes down the movements of grain, oil, and labor. Nothing grand, nothing hurried, only the slow, patient breath of a village at work. And in these small details, a world unfolds. The soft scratch of stylus on clay, the clink of pottery against pottery, the creak of woven red mats under tired hands. You can almost feel the warmth of the stone beneath bare feet, the cool breeze that drifts from the Nile, the scent of grain carried by the morning air. But the village holds more than daily life. Quiet mysteries linger at its edges, faint amulets tucked into walls for protection, half-faded carvings speaking of prayers, stories, and hopes nearly erased by time. These are the whispers of people whose names history has forgotten, but whose presence still lingers in every worn surface and every shadowed corner. This is not the story of kings or conquest. It is the story of stillness, the story of lives, lived slowly, intimately, in tune with earth and water. A story meant not to awaken your mind, but to let it drift, like the Nile itself, calm, steady, and endless. So close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let yourself be carried into this village, by the river. This is boring history, sleep-friendly, unhurried, and quietly alive. If this somnolent story brings you peace, consider subscribing so you'll always have a calm place to return to. Comment below. Let us know where you're watching from and what time it is right now in your time zone. We love seeing this quiet village of listeners span across the world. The Nile flows without hurry. It has done so for thousands of years, steady, wide, and calm. Before the sun rises, the village by the water begins to wake. A narrow footpath runs between two long walls made of dried mud brick. The air is cool and still. There is no rush. There are no wagons rattling by, no loud voices, just the distant creak of wood on water, where a boatman shifts his or quietly. Not to wake the birds still tucked in the reeds, a small oil lamp flickers in the doorway of a low, flat-roofed house. Inside, the baker rubs sleep from his eyes. He kneels beside the clay oven that holds the warmth from yesterday's fire. He pushes dried rushes and straw into the small opening, coaxing the flame to life again. No one speaks yet. It's too early. In this small village far from temples, away from stone columns and gold-leafed tombs, life begins slowly, with repetition and with care. A man ties a linen cloth around his waist. A woman checks the jars to see how much grain is left. A child turns over in sleep on a bed of woven reeds. Time moves gently here. It doesn't command. It flows like the river itself. What follows is not a tale of kings or gods. It's the quieter story of a morning, of tools made smooth by use, of bread that rises in the same way it always has, of a scribe who sharpens his reed pen before writing down the grain tallies for the week. No one in this village believes Their name will be remembered for thousands of years, but still they work. Still they live and eat and hope and watch the river go by. Let us rest beside them. Let the weight of the day fall away. The river will carry us gently into the past. Daily life in a village by the Nile. The first light of day falls softly across the Nile. It filters through the tall papyrus stalks, casting delicate shadows that ripple gently on the water. In the distance, the muffled bray of a donkey breaks the silence, then fades again. The village, like so many others, dotted along the river's edge, is made from Earth's homes, molded from the same silt-rich mud that lines the banks. The walls are warm to the touch, even before the sun climbs high. Inside each house, the air is still, thick with the faint scent of grain, smoke, and woven linen. In one such home, a baker begins his day. His name is unknown to history, but we can imagine his movements with care. His hair is dark and close-cropped. His hands are worn, fingers thick from years of kneading dough and stoking fires. He reaches for a clay bowl and checks the dough that was set to rise the evening before. It smells slightly sour live. A low fire crackles beneath the domed oven. The baker dips his hands in a bowl of water, then shapes the dough into round, flat discs. He moves with quiet precision. This same motion, this same rhythm, has repeated every day of his working life. Outside, the village paths are still empty. Chickens pecked quietly at the edges of the road. A goat nibbles on a patch of grass that grows near a pile of discarded palm fronds. The scent of the river is near damp earth and slow-moving water. Farther down the narrow street, another home stirs. A farmer sits on a small wooden stool, tying his sandals. His eyes are still heavy with sleep, but his arms move without thinking. He reaches for his hoe, its wooden handle smooth and pale from years of wear. His wife hands him a linen sack with dates and barley bread. She doesn't speak. Their morning ritual is quiet. He nods, steps outside, and begins the slow walk to the fields. The sun rises slowly, without rush or heat. Shadows stretch long across the ground. In the distance, the fields shimmer with dew. Workers move in small groups, some carrying baskets, others leading oxen. The farmer joins his neighbors. They do not greet each other with words. They've worked side by side for too long. Their hands say enough. With simple tools, they begin the task of turning the soil. The earth is rich and dark. The Nile's flood has passed, and the silt it left behind is thick with promise. They work in silence. With the rhythm of the river, the light softens on the wall. Back in the village, the scribe is already seated at his post near the granary. He's not old, but his posture is careful, straight, controlled. His shaved head glistens in the morning light. A reed pen rests between his fingers. Before him lies a small wooden board, coated in a thin layer of white plaster, where he makes his notes in black and red ink. His job is quiet but essential. Each day, as grain is delivered from the fields, he records the amounts. How many baskets, from which farm, which day, how many were stored, how many sent on. His script is neat, columns carefully drawn. He speaks little. His mouth moves only when confirming the count aloud. His board is not permanent. The plaster can be wiped clean and smoothed again. The records he keeps will later be copied onto longer papyrus scrolls if needed. But for now, it is enough. A breeze moves through the granary, lifting the edge of his linen robe. He doesn't react, only glances up, briefly, at the sound of footsteps. A worker appears, balancing 2 baskets of barley on a wooden yoke. He sets them down with care. Dust rises. The scribe notes the count, nods once, and writes. Outside, the sun continues to rise. A faint buzzing of flies begins near the water jars. Children begin to play in the dust. Sticks, stones, bits of cloth. They laugh softly. A woman calls them back to sweep the floor. The light falls gently across the rooftops near the edge of the village. A man kneels beside a shallow grave. He's cleaning a small, a carved scarab, no larger than a thumb. Its surface is worn, but the faint lines of hieroglyphs remain. He brushes away dust with a fine reed. He does this alone, not because it is secret, but because no one else finds these scraps of the past worth the trouble. He finds amulets, broken beads, chips of painted pottery. Most are ignored, tossed aside, but he keeps them in a small pouch. He believes they matter. The old tomb nearby is partially collapsed. Its walls are bare, the paint long faded. But once, someone important was buried here. Not royal, but respected. Perhaps a priest, or a merchant. It's hard to know now. The man sighs and places the scarab into his pouch. He stands, stretches, and looks out over the river. It glints in the sunlight, slow and wide. The morning turns to midday. The heat builds, and the fields begin to empty. Farmers return, slowly, shoulders hunched, sandals dusty. The granary, the last tallies are made. The scribe packs away his tools. He folds his robe with care, brushes the dust from his sandals, and makes his way home. He walks with steady steps. The baker's fire has cooled. He sits outside his home, shaping a small loaf for his evening meal. The goat is tethered nearby, chewing on scraps. Children nap in the shade. The village is quiet again. The sun leans westward. The river carries light like a sheet of polished gold. The scribes, day records, rituals, and writing tools. The scribe's house is quiet. It stands near the edge of the village, not far from the granary and the small structure where official records are sometimes copied and sealed. His doorway is shaded by a thin mat of palm leaves. A small reed fence marks the edge of his home. There is no decoration, no painted doorway, no garden. Just earth, dried and cracked in the afternoon light. Inside, the coolness is welcome. The walls are smooth and pale. A jar of water sits in the corner, and a small wooden stool rests beside a low writing platform made of woven fiber. On the wall, hanging neatly, are 2 bundles of reed pens cut and trimmed by the scribe himself. Their tips carefully shaped over hot coals. The tools of his trade are simple, reed pens. Black and red pigments made from ground minerals, a shallow stone dish for mixing, a strip of fine linen for wiping, and the plastered tablet for daily notes. When needed, he uses papyrus, but only for records that must last longer. Papyrus is precious, not to be wasted. He sits with legs crossed and dips the pen in a bit of water. Then, gently, into the powder. He begins to write, not in haste, not for others to watch, but in the same quiet rhythm as always. Long vertical strokes, angled curves, compact, clear symbols that mirror not sound but idea. Each mark is deliberate. He records, grain delivered. From the northern field, 38 baskets. 3 from the upper house, 7 from the western gate. Red ink marks the summary. Total, 48. He adds the name of the overseer who confirmed the count. The ink dries quickly. The surface of the tablet feels smooth under his hand, but he is careful not to smudge it. There is no rush. The grain is already stored. This is the record of what has happened. Nothing more, but it matters. He pauses to drink. The water is cool, flavored faintly with crushed herbs. A cicada begins to call from the edge of the courtyard. Its voice rises and falls slowly, as if counting the hours. The light fades on the floor. This scribe, like others, was trained from youth. Not everyone learns the signs. It takes time. Years of copying from master scrolls, memorizing words, perfecting form. Mistakes are not punished harshly, but they are never ignored. To be a scribe is to carry trust. If a tally is wrong or a name misspelled, someone could be paid less. Someone could lose favor. The weight of these small details sits silently in his work. Outside, the sound of footsteps approaches. The door curtain stirs. A young boy enters his apprentice. The boy bows slightly and kneels beside the writing board. The scribe gestures for him to read aloud the column of entries made that morning. The boy hesitates, then begins. His voice is low, careful. He misreads a glyph, then corrects himself. The scribe does not scold. He waits, watches. Then, gently, he points to the mistake and explains. This, he says, tapping the symbol, is not basket. It is measure. Two different things. The boy nods. They begin again. The sound of their practice fills the room, calm and steady. The sun leans lower. Shadows stretch across the wall. A cool draft enters through a small window carved high in the mud brick. The scent of the drying ink hangs faintly in the air mineral, sharp, clean. Later, the scribe lights a small oil lamp. Its glow pools across the tablet. He reviews the day's tallies once more, then transfers the totals to a fresh sheet of papyrus. His brushstrokes glide across the surface with ease. Papyrus feels different, lightly rough, but pliant. He ties the sheet into a roll, then wraps it in linen. A clay seal is pressed onto the knot. The sign of the granary is stamped in. Tomorrow, it will be carried to the local steward. He sets the roll aside. His task is done. Outside, the light has faded to dusk. The village quiets again. A dog barks. Once, then is silent. A woman sings to her baby, her voice low and soft. The stars begin to show, one by one, behind the palm trees. Inside, the scribe closes his eyes. His work, though not grand, is steady. It ties the village together, field to storehouse, labor to record. Without it, the world would drift. He breathes slowly. The ink dries. The wall darkens with shadow. Amulets, tombs, and forgotten symbols at the far edge of the village. Past the last homes and just before the land rises into low, dry hills. There lies a field of stones, quiet, half-buried, and broken by time. This is the resting place of those who were once honored, though not famous. A small necropolis, hidden in the open, visited now only by the wind, the dust, and occasionally a man with careful hands and a patient heart. He is not an archaeologist. There is no such word in this world. But he is curious and cautious. He collects things, forgotten things, left behind when names stopped being remembered. The day is long past noon. The heat has softened slightly. The man kneels by a slab of carved limestone, its edges chipped, its surface worn smooth by centuries of sun. His fingers trace a faint groove, once a glyph, perhaps the beginning of a name. Now, just a shallow mark in the stone. Beside the tomb is a shallow hole. He has been digging not deep, only enough to reach the layer where broken pottery and small trinkets often lie. Nothing of value in gold or jewels, but he is not looking for value. He is looking for presence, for proof that someone lived. He sifts the soil with a flat piece of palm wood. Slowly, carefully, a flash of color catches his eye. He leans closer. Buried just beneath the surface, tucked in beside a splintered jar, is a small object, an amulet. Pale green, like faded turquoise. It is carved in the shape of an eye, the eye of Horus. He lifts it gently, brushing it off with the hem of his robe. It is no longer bright, but the lines are sharp. The pupil, the curved markings beneath. A symbol of protection once worn by someone who feared being forgotten. He turns it in his hand. It is light, smooth, quiet. The amulet may have been part of a burial offering or tied to a cord worn around the neck. Its purpose, like so many others, was to shield from illness, from spirits, from the slow erasure of death. The wind moves softly over the stones. Not far away, another grave marker leans to one side. Its surface is blank now. Once painted, perhaps. Once carved with care. Now, it is only stone. Cracked and bleached, the man walks to it, pressing his sandal into the fine dust. He squats beside the base and begins to dig again. Not with speed, not with expectation, just quiet effort. He finds a fragment of pottery, painted, a red stripe, curves across its surface. It once belonged to a larger jar, used to hold oil or beer. Perhaps it stood beside the body during the funerary rites. Perhaps it was just tossed there later. Forgotten, he places it beside the amulet. The sun leans low on the horizon. As he digs, he sometimes hums, low and tuneless. It keeps the silence from becoming too large. His hands are dry and calloused. Dirt settles into the lines of his fingers. He doesn't mind. He finds a second amulet, this one chipped. A tiny scarab, carved from dark stone. Its back is smooth, its legs barely visible. He turns it over. The underside carries a single glyphank. Life, it is cracked through the center. But it is still complete enough to keep. He places it into his pouch with the others. The light softens on the hills when he returns to the village. He will dry them on a cloth in the shade. He will not sell them or display them. He will store them in a small clay jar beneath his bed. He is not sure why, only that they are meant to be kept at night. Sometimes he dreams of the people who once wore them. He does not see faces, only hands. A hand tying a string, a hand placing an amulet on a chest, a hand lifting a jar, setting it beside a wrapped body. He wakes before the dream ends. Outside, the tombs fade into shadow. The breeze picks up. A thin ribbon of sand dances across the open ground. Insects chirp softly from beneath the stones. The man stands, stretches, and begins the slow walk home. The light is golden now. The fields in the distance shimmer with late sun. The river gleams like quiet metal. Another day has ended, and the amulets, small and silent, are safe once more. Mud brick homes and pharaohs' stone walls. A quiet contrast evening comes gently to the village. The sun dips lower, casting long shadows across the earth. Smoke rises from cooking fires. drifting softly into the fading light. The voices of neighbors blend quietly, low murmurs, laughter, a song half sung in the distance. There is no rush, no sharp commands, only the slow folding of the day into rest. We walk now between homes, small, narrow structures built from the soil itself. Bricks, dried under the sun, stacked and coated with a thin layer of plaster. These homes breathe with the land. They are cool in summer, warm in winter, and built with hands, not chisels. A woman kneels at her doorway, pressing new mud between the cracks of her outer wall. She uses a simple wooden tool. The wall will need this repair again next year, and the year after. That is understood. The material is temporary, like the lives inside. The doorway is low. To enter, one must bow slightly. Inside, the ceiling is supported by palm logs. The air smells of cooking grain, dry reeds, and the faint sweetness of date syrup. In one corner, a sleeping mat has been unrolled. In another, a small pile of linen cloth, neatly folded. The floor is swept clean, its dust pressed down by years of footsteps. A clay jar rests in the shade, water beating on its cool surface. Children sit near the doorway, weaving thin cords from palm fiber. Their fingers move without thought. The cords will be used to tie bundles of herbs or to fasten lids on jars. One child hums, barely louder than the breeze. A hen clucks softly in the courtyard. This is life inside a villager's home. Not grand, not fixed in stone, but deeply known. Every crack in the wall, every creak of the door, every worn spot on the threshold tells a story, silent, simple. Real. The light softens on the bricks, but just beyond the view of these homes too. Day's journey to the north or south, the walls change. Stone rises where mud once stood. Massive blocks, cut with precision, stacked not for comfort, but for command. Temples and palaces. Monuments built not to shelter a family, but to display a name. Pharaoh's name. The contrast is quiet, but unmistakable. Stone does not breathe like mud brick. It does not crumble with the seasons. It resists time. That is the point. Inside the palace, the air is cool. Not from wind or water, but from shade and size. Courtyards echo. Walls tower above, etched with scenes of battles, of gods, of the pharaoh receiving tribute. The stone is smooth beneath the fingers cold. Unlike the warmth of home, servants move silently here, trained not to speak unless addressed. The floors are swept, the columns polished. Incense smokes from shallow dishes, masking the scent of the outside world. Linen curtains drift in wide archways, their edges embroidered with symbols of power. Lotus, falcon sun, dot in a corner chamber. A nobleman reclines on a carved wooden couch. He is reading a scroll, his hand resting on a polished staff. His nails are oiled, his feet bare and clean. A scribe waits nearby, holding a board and ink. He will not write until commanded. This room is quiet, but the silence is different from that of the village. It is not peaceful. It is careful. The nobleman eats from silver dishes, drinks wine from a painted cup. His sandals are stitched leather, too fine for farm paths. He has never repaired a wall with mud, never patched a roof before the rain, and yet, even here, the symbols are the same. The eye of Horus, the scarab, the ankh. Carved in ivory, not clay, but still familiar. A servant enters, places a dish of figs on the floor, then steps back into shadow. The nobleman glances toward the open doorway. Beyond it, the columns rise again. Sunlight filters through a lattice of stone. A breeze touches the edge of the curtain. Somewhere in the distance, the call of a bird, clear and lonely. The day ends here, not with laughter, not with games in the dirt, but with ceremony. A ritual bath, a hymn to the god of writing, a recitation of lineage. He rests on fine linen. The bed is raised above the floor. The room is wide. But the sleep will be the same. The light fades from the high stone walls. Back in the village, a mother braids her daughter's hair by firelight. The flames flicker across the walls. Kea, she hums an old song, one she learned from her own mother. Her fingers move gently. Her daughter's eyes drift closed. The home creaks as the wind moves past. Dust settles. The jar cools. 2 worlds, one of mud brick, one of stone, one built to last a season, one built to last an age, but both held in the stillness of night. Asterisk the rhythm of work, worship, and water. Segment 5, the rhythm of work. Worship and water morning returns, as it always does, not with alarms or clamor, but with light. Soft, golden, and sure. It touches the tops of the palm trees first, then drapes slowly down across the riverbanks into the fields, and on to the rooftops of the village. The Nile glistens, wide, unmoving at a glance, but always flowing beneath. A man rises from his mat and washes his face in a shallow bowl. The water is cool. He cups it with both hands, lets it run down his arms. This is not a ritual, but it feels like one. The same action every morning. A quiet start. A promise of order. The rhythm of the day begins. Work comes first, not because it is required, but because it has always come first. The village knows. No other pattern dot in the fields. The plows are already drawn. Oxen step slowly, their hooves pressing into the damp earth. A farmer walks behind, guiding the wooden blade with both hands. The soil turns beneath him dark, rich, silent. His son walks a few steps behind, scattering seeds from a basket. They do not speak. The sound of birds and hoofbeats is enough. Elsewhere, near the water, fishermen pull in their nets. Thin cords stretch between reed poles. The nets glisten with spray. Inside, silver flashes of fish. Caught, stilled, sorted. The men work in pairs. One pulls, the other empties the catch into clay jars. Their movements are practiced, almost like dance. By midday, the sun stands high. The heat flattens the path. The air shimmers just above the ground. The village pauses. Tools are set aside. Children are called indoors. A dog stretches in the shade of a wall, then sleeps. Inside one home, a woman ladles lentil stew into small bowls. She hums quietly. Outside, her husband rests on a low bench, his eyes half closed, his mind somewhere between thought and dream. The scribe sits beneath his usual awning, recording the morning's grain weights, sweat beads on his scalp, but he works on undisturbed. The tablet rests in his lap, the ink drying fast in the heat. The light softens on the ledgers, later in the afternoon. The rhythm shifts again from labor to worship. A small shrine stands in the center of the village. Just a simple structure of mud brick, its roof low, its doorway narrow. Inside is a single figure, carved from dark stone, perhaps Bastet or Isis, or even an old local deity whose name is no longer spoken beyond these walls. The villagers pass by on their way home. Some bow their heads. Others touch the threshold. A few stop to leave offerings, figs, bread. A single flower placed gently in a clay dish. One woman kneels, pressing her forehead to the cool ground. She whispers, not in chant, but in conversation. Her voice is low and steady. She asks for health, for rain, for a quiet season. Then she rises and walks away. There is no priest here. No grand rituals, only habit. Reverence that flows like the river, constant, soft, unseen by most. Evening brings sound back. Children laugh near the river's edge, chasing one another with sticks. A boy throws a stone into the water and watches the ripples stretch out across the surface. A young girl, no older than 6, holds a woven basket full of herbs. She dips it once in the river, then sets it aside to dry. The men return from the fields, shoulders tired, hands darkened by the soil. They greet one another without words, nods, shared looks. They know the weight of the day, and they carry it lightly. Dinner is simple: bread, beans, water flavored with crushed mint. Sometimes fish, sometimes not. Always the same jars, the same plates, the same places on the floor. The meal is not rushed. It is not sacred, but it is respected. Each bite is a marker, sign that the work was done, that the body was fed, that the cycle continues. Afterward, the village rests, not all at once, not in silence, but gently. A man sharpens a tool outside his door. The soft grind of stone on metal echoes faintly across the wall. A woman braids onions into a long strand, tying each with twine. A group of elders sits near the shrine, speaking softly about the season, the moon, the signs in the sky. The water reflects the stars. A boy asks his father about the gods. He wonders why the river always returns, why the birds nest in the same trees, why some people live in stone halls and others in houses that melt in the rain. The father answers slowly, not with certainty, but with comfort, because that is how it is, he says, and it has always been. The child nods. The answer is enough. The light dims on the shrine wall. Before sleep, some villagers wash their feet, not out of rule, but to feel clean before the mat. A girl lights a small oil lamp. She watches it flicker. Her mother smooths a linen sheet and lays down beside her. The girl watches the flame until her eyes close. Outside, the river flows on. It does not rest, but it does not hurry. The same way it always has. Sleep, stars, and the stillness of the Nile. The village is quiet now. The fires have burned low. The oil lamps flicker behind thin curtains, casting long, soft shadows on plastered walls. Footsteps are few. Voices, if heard at all, are hushed. Most are already resting. Some dream. Others simply lie awake, staring upward into the darkness and listening to the sounds of night. The Nile flows still. Its waters, dark now, reflect the stars in scattered fragments. The surface seems unmoving. But below, a slow, unseen current continues its journey toward the seed, just as it has every day, every night. 4 lifetimes uncounted, near the riverbank, reeds rustle softly. A heron, pale in the moonlight, shifts its weight from one leg to the other, then settles again into stillness. The insects chirp in steady rhythm. Somewhere in the distance, the low call of a bullfrog echoes once, then fades. The village sleeps. In one home, a child stirs on a mat. then curls deeper under a thin linen cloth. Her breathing is soft, even. A clay jar sits beside the bed, its neck wrapped with a thin string for lifting. The water inside has cooled with the night. The room smells faintly of dust, smoke, and the warm linen used to patch the roof just weeks ago. In another house, an older man lies with his hands folded over his chest. He listens not for danger, not for news, but simply for the night itself. He has always found comfort in the way the wind moves through the palm trees, in the way the clay walls hold the day's warmth, in the knowledge that the sun will rise again, and everything will begin once more. The air is still. A sleeping dog turns once, then sighs. A low creak comes from a wooden beam overhead, shifting slightly as the temperature cools. These are not disruptions. They are familiar notes in the quiet song of the night. Far above, the stars form patterns long known by the villagers. Some say they are boats sailing across the sky. Others see them as spirits, watching, waiting. A farmer once told his son that the stars follow the same path as the river, and that both lead to the same place where the gods rest. The sky deepens. The moon is a soft curve, barely visible above the horizon. Its light is pale, and it moves slowly, casting a silver path across the water. That path leads nowhere in particular, but it is beautiful and enough. Within the shrine at the village center, the stone figure sits unchanged. A faint scent of incense still lingers in the cool interior. A dried flower remains in the offering bowl. No one comes to worship now, but the god is not forgotten. The silence itself is reverence. The scribe sleeps in his corner room, his tools tucked away. The ink pots are covered, the reed pens cleaned. The day's scroll lies rolled in cloth, bound with simple twine. His dreams are quiet, sometimes filled with words, sometimes with numbers, sometimes with nothing at all. The farmer dreams of water, of the soil beneath his hands, of oxen walking steady lines. He does not need stories. He dreams of labor, and that is enough. The baker dreams of heat, of the warm circle of bread rising in the oven, of shaping dough in early light before voices stir. The comfort of familiar work echoes even in his sleep. Outside, a soft wind moves through the village paths. It gathers the faint scent of the fields, the crushed herbs, the ash from cooling fires. It passes through doorways without being noticed, brushing the edges of mats, lifting the corners of blankets, then leaving again silent, unseen. The light fades on the riverbank. Even the insects have quieted now. The last frog call is distant. The heron sleeps. The reeds sway once, then still. The Nile carries the night. It bears not just water, but memory. Every ripple, every echo, every silence folded into its current. It remembers the voices of workers, the creak of grain baskets, the splash of oars, the sound of a child laughing at sunset. All of it flows downstream into time, and still it returns every season, every year, quiet, steady, complete in the deepest part of the night. The village breathes as one dot, no fear, no rush, only rest, only peace, only the long, slow rhythm of sleep beside the river. Asterisk, morning again. The eternal return of village life. The sky lightens before the world wakes. Not with a sound, a tita, soft, but with a shade of soft, pale blue that spreads from the eastern horizon, brushing the tops of palm trees. catching the edges of rooftops. There are no alarms, no clanging bells. Only the subtle shift of color across the sky. Only the quiet promise that day will come again. The Nile is the first to see it. Its surface, so dark just moments ago, now holds the faintest reflection of morning. Light glimmers along the edges. The water moves slowly, like someone waking from a deep sleep. The breeze is faint but cool. It touches the reeds, lifts a single feather from the bank, and carries it gently toward the open current dot in the village. A rooster calls once. Then again, inside a mud brick home, a woman rises. She moves slowly, sitting up on her mat, stretching her arms, adjusting the linen scarf around her shoulders. She doesn't speak. Her husband still sleeps beside her, his breath even, steady. She walks to the jar near the doorway, pours water into a shallow basin, and begins to wash her face. The water is cold. She doesn't flinch. A low murmur rises from the street of voice, then another. A clay pot clinks gently against a stone. The village begins to stir. The baker's fire is the first true flame of the day. Thin wisps of smoke curl upward from the oven vent. Inside, the embers from yesterday glow faintly, waiting to be fed. He kneels beside it, coaxing it to life with a few dried fronds and careful breath. The wood catches slowly, then flares. Warmth returns to the room. The light flickers on the wall. He takes the bowl of dope prepared before sleep, left to rise. Through the cool night hand begins shaping it into small rounds. His fingers move without thought. The dough is smooth and soft. He presses, folds, presses again. There is no hurry. Outside, the sun crests the hills. A golden line breaks across the sky. Shadows stretch and soften. Nay, chickens rustle in the courtyard, pecking at the ground. A boy walks past, carrying 2 empty jars on a yoke. He glances toward the baker, nods once, then continues on. The day has begun. A group of farmers gather near the edge of the village. They stand in a loose circle, talking quietly. No plans need to be made. The work is the same as always walk. To the fields, guide the oxen, lift the soil, plant, tend, wait. The rhythm is known, but still, they speak for a few minutes, share bread, offer each other dates. One man tells a short story about a dream. They laugh softly, then disperse. The scribe walks to his usual place near the granary. His robe is clean, tucked neatly at the waist. He carries his writing board beneath one arm, his pouch of pens and pigments in the other. He moves calmly, not slowly, not fast, just in time with the day. At the entrance to the granary, he sits on a small stool. The light catches his board. He smooths the surface with a cloth, then opens the pouch, selects a pen, and prepares the ink dot. He writes the date. A moment later, the first delivery arrives, 3 baskets of grain from the northern plot. The worker places them down gently, dust rising around his ankles. The scribe does not look up immediately. He finishes a word, then raises his eyes, nods, writes. The river shines with full light now. A girl fetches water at the shore, filling 2 jars with practiced ease. She steps barefoot into the shallows, the mud cool between her toes. The jars sink with a soft gurgle. She waits, straightens her back, then lifts them one by one onto the carrying pole. Her walk back is slow but steady. The water rocks slightly with each step, but she never spills. At the shrine, the morning offerings begin again. A man places a sprig of mint on the worn stone. A woman leaves a pinch of flour in the bowl. A child, half awake, touches the threshold with 2 fingers, then runs off without a word. Inside the shrine, nothing moves. But the air feels different, as if it knows the cycle is beginning again. In one of the homes, a young boy sits with a slate in his lap. His mother crouches beside him, pointing to the symbols scratched into the surface. She whispers their names: sun, basket, river. He repeats them, uncertain but curious. Learning, like farming, is part of the day's work. In the distance, a boat moves along the Nile. A flat vessel with a striped sail, riding the current slowly. It passes without sound. Its wake curls against the bank, then fades. No one waves. But everyone sees it. It is all part of the same morning. The chickens cluck. The hammer taps against a broken handle. The breath of the village deepens. Work has begun. But nothing is rushed. Nothing is loud. Even the oxen walk in silence. The light softens on the rooftops. Every task is familiar. Every face known. Even the sounds seem repeated, not stale, but comforting. A woven net lifted from the ground. A pair of sandals tied with twine. The slow brushing of grain from a basket into a jar. Nothing remarkable. Nothing new. And yet, everything complete. This is how time moves here, not in leaps, but in circles, day into night, night into day, river into river, hand into soil, bread into fire, child into mother's arms. The village lives not in history, but in rhythm. And the Nile watches. It holds their stories without writing them down. It flows past the fields and the homes and the shrines, silent and vast. And as the sun climbs higher, it carries the light into another morning, just like the last, just like the next. Beneath the surface, what remains and what is lost, the day is full now. Voices rise and fall across the village. The scent of baking bread drifts through the narrow lanes. Children chase one another between homes, their laughter light carried. On the breeze, the river glints with sun. Birds trace long arcs across the sky. Life unfolds as it always does, and yet, beneath the surface of earth, of habit, of memory, there is something else. Time, moving quietly beneath the weight of daily things. We return to the edge of the village, to the hill where the old tombs lie, broken and half covered with wind-blown dust. The man who gathers small objects is there again, kneeling, patient. His tools are few: a smooth stone, curved bone scraper, brush made from palm fiber. He is not looking for treasure. He is looking for traces. He sifts the dry earth carefully. It does not offer its secrets easily. But slowly, under his hand, a shape emerges, a fragment of painted plaster. Faded blue lines, the curve of a bird's wing, a hint of gold. Once, it belonged to the wall of a burial chamber. Now, it lies in pieces. He sets it beside the others on a woven mat. Each one small, incomplete, but together they form something less, a picture than a presence. A reminder that someone once stood here, painted, prayed, buried the dead in another corner of the hill. A narrow shaft leads into the ground, collapsed long ago, the roof fallen, the passage choked with stone and sand. No one dares go deep. The air is too thin, the walls too fragile. But once, long ago, it was open. A procession stood here chanting softly, carrying jars, lighting incense. They placed the body inside, sealed the entrance, turned their faces to the sun, and walked away. The tomb was meant to last forever. And in some way it has. Though its names are gone, its offerings stolen, its walls fallen, still it remains, part of the earth, part of the memory of this place. The light softens on the broken stones. Back in the village, scribe writes a different kind of record. Not grain, not labor, not names, but thoughts. On a narrow strip of papyrus, he writes a short prayer. The lines are simple. An offering to Thoth, god of writing. A request for clarity, for patience, for memory. He folds the papyrus and places it into a small clay pot. To be read, not to be found, but simply to exist. He buries the pot beside the foundation of his home. No one sees. It is not ceremony. It is habit. A quiet desire that something of him will remain, not his name, not his numbers, but the thought itself. The pot is small. The earth swallows it easily. The light darkens on the writing board. Elsewhere, a woman repairs a mat by the fire. Her fingers twist new reeds into the old weave. It is slow work. She pauses now and then to rub her hands or sip from a water jar. Her daughter watches, then picks up a strand and tries the pattern. They do not speak. The lesson is in the doing. What is remembered is not only in scrolls or carvings, but in gesture, in the way a loaf is shaped, in how a shoulder is touched, in the rhythm of a footfall along a dusty path. These things do not last, but they are carried forward. That the dog lies in the shade. The goat chews a dried stalk. The boy stirs a pot of lentils with a flat wooden spoon, the same one his grandmother once held. Beneath every action is the echo of another. The light softens on the river's edge, and as the sun begins its slow descent, shadows lengthen again. The cycle continues. The old tombs darken, the fields quiet. The birds return to the trees. The man on the hill gathers his finds, 2 amulets, a worn shard of pottery, a bead, a carved fragment of stone. He wraps them in cloth and ties the bundle with a thin piece of twine. He carries it down the slope toward the village. He will not display them. He will not sell them, but he will keep them close. Somewhere, far in the future, someone else may find them again, or not. It doesn't matter. They are here now, and that is enough. The river slows, the wind stills, the stars wait their turn, and beneath it all, beneath the steps and the tools and the walls and the names, the past hums quietly, never gone, never. Whole, never loud, just there, like breath. Asterisk, when the river floods. Patience, preparation, and trust in the Nile. The seasons in this village do not follow numbers or pages. They follow the river. When the Nile begins to rise, the people do not shout. They do not panic. They watch, slowly, patiently, the same way their grandparents watched, and their grandparents before them. It begins with a change in color. The water darkens not with shadow, but with silt, rich, black earth carried from far upstream. The surface thickens slightly, not visibly, just enough to catch the light in a different way. Fish jump more often. Birds gather at the edges. Then the edges disappear. One morning, where there was a clear border between river and shore, there is only wet ground. The line has softened. Water creeps into the grass, into the paths, into the low places behind the houses. No one is surprised. The rising comes every year. It is not sudden, is not fast, but it is certain. it is expected. The light softens on the fields. Farmers walk the perimeter of their land, noting which plots are touched first. They measure not with tools, but with steps. With stones placed the year before. With the feeling. Beneath their feet, they speak little. The flood is not something to fear. It is something to endure, to respect, to thank. Inside the homes, families move their jars to higher shelves. They lift mats and tools onto platforms. Bread is baked in larger batches. Grains are stored tighter. The goat is brought closer to the doorway. Chickens are herded inside a fenced corner. It is preparation. Quiet, simple, shared. No one gives orders. Everyone already knows that the water comes further each day. At the granary, the scribe adjusts his schedule. Fewer deliveries arrive now. The fields are no longer passable. His board holds more blank space than usual. Still, he sits. He records. He waits. One afternoon, a boy splashes into the edge of the rising pool. His feet sink slightly into the black mud. He laughs, then is called back. The laughter fades, but the mark remains 2 small footprints. Filled slowly with water, the wind moves over the swelling surface. By the time the flood is full, the river is no longer a line. It is a body, wide, slow, all around. The village becomes an island, surrounded not by danger, but by breath. Everything slows. Tools are cleaned and put away. Nets are mended. Wood is shaped. Stories are told again. Over small fires, in low voices. The flood is not a time of work. It is a time of pause. It is not vacation. It is not laziness. It is trust. Land is resting, gathering, waiting to give. One evening. A group of elders sit near the shrine, feet bare, robes loose, watching the water shimmer with the last light of day. One of them speaks, a memory. A flood from his childhood that came too far, filled the house, ruined the grain. Another elder nods. Yes, he remembers that year too. But still, the river receded. Still, the soil was rich. They say this not to teach, not to warn, it's only to share. That's how knowledge moves here, through listening, through stillness. The light softens on the water's edge, inside one home. A mother tells her daughter about Hapi, the spirit of the Nile, the god of the flood. Not fierce, not proud, but generous. She says the god wears papyrus on his head and carries full jars in his arms. His body is round, soft with plenty. His smile is gentle. The child listens, eyes wide. She imagines the god standing in the river now, just out of sight, blessing the fields with quiet hands. Outside, the moon reflects on the flooded plain. Nothing moves fast. The air is still, damp, clean. For days, sometimes weeks, the village remains like this, floating not in fear, but in faith. That the river will return to its bed, that the soil will settle, that the work will begin again. And it does, not with ceremony, not with trumpet or call, just with drying paths, with the first print of a bare foot on solid ground, with oxen led once more from the shelter, sniffing the softened earth. The farmers smile, not wide, just a crease at the edge of the mouth. Enough. They gather their tools, check the handles, sharpen the blades, test the cords. The scribe writes a new date on his tablet. A woman unwraps her seed bundles. A child touches the water one last time before it pulls away. The fish are gone now. The birds, too. The ground darkens with promise. And just like that, the rhythm returns. The light falls across the cleared fields, and the Nile, as always, moves on quiet, full, unseen beneath the surface. Names in dust, memory in clay, the village beyond time. Not every name is written down, not every life is carved into stone. Most of the people who have lived here, in this quiet village beside the Nile, are unknown to history. They did not build pyramids. They did not command armies. They did not rule, but they lived. And they left behind marks not in monuments, but in smaller, softer ways. A smooth place on a threshold stone, a worn groove in the ground where countless jars were dragged, a faint red handprint on the inside of a home left when the plaster was still drying. The light softens on the wall. We do not know the names of the women who baked bread every morning, kneeling before the clay oven in the still hour before dawn. But the ovens remain. The soot, the ash, the shape of their palms in the bowls still linger. We do not know the names of the men who tended the fields, year after year, through flood and drought. But their tools are still found simple, worn, wrapped in leather, smoothed by work. We do not know the children's voices. We do not know their games. But we find their toys bits of wood carved into animals, small dolls made from cloth and red, tiny footprints frozen in baked mud outside a home long gone. These are the records no scroll holds. Inside, the scribes. House, now long silent, a broken pen rests beneath a stone. Perhaps dropped, perhaps placed. The ink jars are dry. The board is blank. The room has no roof. And yet, when the wind blows, the sand that lifts from the corner smells faintly of crushed pigment. The writing remains. Even without words, the light fades from the plastered floor. At the shrine, the figure is broken. One arm gone, the face chipped. But the stone still holds shape, a curve of hip, a sliver of an eye. And someone still places small stones at its base, as if the gods might still be listening. Maybe they are. We cannot know, but the offering remains in the graveyard on the hill. The tombs have all but collapsed. Time presses hard here. But beneath the rubble, someone once placed a bowl beside a head. Someone once wrapped a body in linen. Someone once whispered a name into darkness, hoping it would echo forever. It did not. But even silence carries weight. The man who once dug here, who once held amulets in his hand, is gone now too. His jar of findings was never recovered. Perhaps buried in his own home. Perhaps taken by a child, now old, who could not bring himself to throw the pieces away. And the river flows still. Every year, it brushes against the edges of the past. It lifts pieces of yesterday and carries them forward. A shard of painted pottery. A bead. A carved sign that once meant life. Some settle in the mud. Some reach new shores. Some wash up, dry in the sun, and are found again. Not always understood, not always valued, but real. The village itself has changed. New walls were built, old ones crumbled. Children became elders, new names were spoken. But the rhythm stayed. Bread was still baked, water still drawn, fields still turned. Even now, standing in the quiet of what remains, you can almost hear it. The soft slap of sandals on earth, the splash of a jar lowered into water, the low murmur of someone counting grain aloud, a scratch of a pen across plaster, the sigh of someone sitting down at the end of the day. It is not memory, exactly. It is something simpler, something quieter. It is the weight of time, gently held. the light dims on the river, there will be other villages, other rivers, other names written and forgotten. But something of this place remains, not in kingship, not in glory, but in quiet persistence, in the way the earth remembers. Where a wall once stood, in the way the breeze carries the scent of old. Fires, in the way the Nile, with infinite patience, rolls forward and back, season after season, never asking to be thanked, and in that movement, slow and full of silence, the village lives on, ready for next segment. And so, the day in our quiet village comes gently to an end. The last light of the sun fades over the river, painting the water in muted gold before slipping into the cool embrace of night. The farmers have set down their tools, the bakers, fire has burned low, and even the scribe has closed his scrolls, leaving only silence and the distant song of crickets along the reeds. The village rests. The Nile still moves, steady and eternal, but the people who live beside it drift into sleep, just as you now may. Their world was one of small labors, soft rituals, and endless patience. And though their names are lost to history, their rhythm remains, a reminder that life is not always grand, but often found in the smallest details, repeated day after day, generation after generation. As you breathe with the night, allow yourself to settle deeper into stillness. Imagine the cool stone. Beneath you, the whisper of reeds in the evening wind, the stars above stretching endlessly across the desert sky. Let the peace of this ancient village stay with you, carrying you further into rest. This story has no ending, only a gentle fading, like the Nile itself, flowing on and on. Good night, and may your dreams be calm, steady, and timeless. If this somnolent story helped you drift towards sleep, consider subscribing so you never miss another calm journey into the past. Comment below. Tell us where you're listening from and what time it is in your time zone right now. It's always a wonder to see our quiet village of listeners stretch across the world.